chapter summary. So this one's really good one. So we kind of talk about the power of independent will. He introduces the concept of the generations of time management. He also introduces the time management matrix, which every time I look at it, I feel like I have a new paradigm. So that's the 4 different quadrants. Then he talks about transitioning into quadrant 2, saying no by having a bigger yes. And he really kind of breaks that down, almost gives like a roadmap in a sense throughout the chapter. He also talks about 4th generation time management tools. And then we talk about delegation and aligning incentives for production and production capability. And then we talk about what he calls the urgency addiction. So we'll kind of dive into those for this discussion. So first question I have, so Covey kind of says his maxim of personal effectiveness is manage from the left and lead from the right. How can, what exactly does he mean by this?
Like lead from the left and manage from the right?
The opposite, but yes. Manage from the left, lead from the right.
I mean, you're talking size of the brain, right?
Correct.
Because the right's the artsy-fartsy part of the brain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, because leadership is kind of that,
right.
What is it, that creative side where management is a little more about the numbers.
Right.
Which, I guess for time management, Covey also calls it a misnomer. Why does he call it a misnomer? Do you guys have any idea on that one? Like why he calls time management a misnomer and really why it matters?
Well, it's really, I mean, it's us that needs the management. It's not the time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
We all are probably guilty of, oh, we got to work on time management, this and that. But I can guarantee you there's at least 4 hours of my day that if you'd smacked me upside the head and sent me back to work, you know, that time would have gotten away. So it's us, you know, and that's where the problem is. The time takes care of itself, especially if you're not finding it. The time will walk out the door, you know.
And I agree with Steve, because kind of towards the end of the chapter where he starts talking about your schedule shouldn't manage you. It should be a tool for you to accomplish the things that you need to do, but it should not be a prison or something that's holding you back or something that's stopping you. It should be something that is complementing everything else you're trying to get done in your life. And so I think, you know, that goes on with don't let your calendar control you. You control your calendar for productivity.
Right. Yeah. So the quote that I really like out of that one, where he's saying, you know, the challenge is not to manage time, manage ourselves. So Steve, you know exactly what you were saying, and then you know, so
that's something that you deal with. There've been some other books that have been like that recently. That, I mean, it's all about us. It's all about that guy in the mirror,
right?
You know, if that guy in the mirror, you know, he's my worst employee. You know what I mean? And if I could get the guy in the mirror to get his head out of his butt, I mean, I think we could do some stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's always keeping that in focus. I mean, I need to work better. We all do, but we got to keep that in focus too.
Right.
You know, I also, I mean, you know, we all have that person that we're chasing. We all have that person in our crosshairs that we're going after and whatever. And when I get mad, I think about that person. And the reality is, I'm not competing with that person. You know, I'm competing with myself. Right. I have to beat me from yesterday. Right. It doesn't matter what they do. They're running their own race. Right. You know.
So one question I want to ask you guys, because I feel like I got a little embarrassed as I was reading through it. So talking about the time management matrix, like 4 different quadrants. For me, as I was reading, I think he gave a couple of examples of, you know, different activities that would be in each. as I read the examples from quadrant 4, I feel like, I kind of blushed a little. It's just like, yeah, I kind of fall into this trap quite a bit. And it's, I don't know, as you guys were kind of reading that, were you kind of noticing, what were your thoughts? Like, did you have any kind of paradigm shifts? I feel like that's kind of the biggest one of, Steve, like you're actually saying, maybe I am my biggest, my worst employee, because I spend too much time in quadrant 4.
Right.
Well, so
to me, we don't spend enough time in quadrant 2. And in real estate, that's in any business, I think. But we're all slaves to the tyranny of the urgent. We are all, the urgent will come and after us all the time. And it's like, it's the perfect example is lead generation in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning, we have to be on the phones, lead generating. That is not urgent, but it's important. That's quadrant 2. And we always have somebody whose closing's on fire, or somebody who the inspection came back and there's an issue that they have, and whatever. And it's like, and it's so cool because have you been on the Monday calls last couple weeks, Laura?
Yeah.
And because David, are you with EXP right now, or?
No, I'm a CPA and a real estate investor.
Okay. One of the things
he just does real estate on the back end with me.
I got you. So Colton Whitney, he's a realtor out in LA, he's been talking about this the last couple of weeks about, and now that I've set it up, I completely forgot what I was going to talk about. You know what? Let's edit that part out.
That's okay, Steve. So
anyway, back to what we're talking. Oh, that's what he was saying. He was saying, how many of us are lead generating and would run out the door to go show a house to a client at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? All of us would do it. But how many of us would go show a house to a client and would put that off to go lead generate? Like, none of us would do that. And we all should do that. That's exactly what we should do at 10 o'clock in the morning. We shouldn't be showing houses. We should be lead generating. It's the most important thing to do.
Right.
We're going to keep our people fed. And we always swap it out. I'm guilty as charged. You know what I mean? We always do it. I'll lead generate later. I'll make phone calls later. You don't make phone calls later. Life gets in the way, and there's more fires later.
Right.
So to me, that's just, in real estate, that's like number one. Quadrant 2 thing.
I have to agree, and I like how. Well, I like how he broke everything down, right? He gave each quadrant a definition and gave examples. And I think a lot of us spend so much time chasing those things. But then when he said that you should have a mission statement for break down who you are. I'm a mom. I'm a realtor. I'm a volunteer at Scouts. I'm, all of these different things. I'm an individual human. I have my own interests, my own whatever, in addition to all these things that I have to be for other people. But I like how he said, have a mission statement for each hat that you wear, each area that you're over in your life. Because if you know what that mission statement is, then you know where each task should fall based on your personal mission statement. Because Steve, for you, like you lead generate in the morning. Well, I have 2 days a week. I lead generate in the afternoon. Right. And it's different, but it's the same because your system works for you. But on your days, those hats are always lead generation hats in the morning, whereas for me, they're not. And so I think knowing, your personal mission statement, I think that you're going to find that some of those tasks rotate quadrants from person to person. So I think knowing who you are internally and what that objective is in each of those areas really helps to organize your day. And I love how so I broke my day down or my time blocking down into a day. Every day I get up, I write my daily tasks of what I have to do each day. And I loved how he really defined, because I actually hired a coach at $1,000 a month, and she coached me for 18 months. And I was no closer to understanding how to write an actual schedule and follow a schedule on month 18 than I was on month one. But I just wasn't. She just was not effective in communicating and teaching that skill. And I think chapter 3 just really, it broke it down, because when you look at your week, if you schedule time in your week to plan, say on Sundays, to your point, you look at your mission statement and each of those hats that you wear. And then I think planning your week out is actually going to be a lot easier than what I was making it out to be, because I always used to say, well, I don't know where or when I'm going to go on an appointment. I may talk to somebody Monday I need to meet with on Tuesday. And, you know, when they talk about schedules, they say always write in pencil, because if you erase, you have to replace it, right? So if you take lead gen or whatever task is out from, 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, you have to put that back somewhere else. And so I think that if anyone really sat down and really defined what your mission statement was in each section of your life that was important, I truly do think you could sit down on Sunday and say, okay, as a realtor, I'm required to talk to 100 people a week. Like, it's, people try to hone our lead gen time down to time, but that's not really true. Like, for me as a realtor, if I talk to 100 people a week, that should turn into 100 deals a year. Like, that's the conversion of what that should be, of someone who is effectively having those conversations. And so if you're having those 100 conversations, and you can do those 100 conversations in, 3 days in 4-hour time blocks, well, it's the same goal, right? And so I think getting clarity on that mission statement will help you get clarity on the calendar.
Right.
And that to me was game changing. No one has ever sat down and said, hey, listen, it's important for you as a wife to go on a date with your husband every Thursday. Organically, we have put that date on our calendar, and it is the one thing every week that nothing comes in between. And if something does, say travel or a kid's performance or whatever, we do erase, but then we also replace that. And so I think that was the key factor in learning how to time block that no one has ever taught me. Know who you are in each area of those lives, and then knowing what's important for that week is going to be easy. And then living in quadrant 2 becomes your reality.
So I like the direction you're going. So one of the questions I had was essentially, how can clarity on roles, not just titles, help increase productivity? Honestly, I think you did a really good job of kind of breaking that down. For me, I've always kind of given myself credit for being able to write a plan, but when he talked about breaking them out by roles, it almost put a different perspective on it. So, Lexi and I actually started doing this after I kind of read this, and we kind of broke out like our different roles in life, and we do our weekly planning. And then we kind of find out, okay, as a fiance, what am I planning to do this week? As a business owner, what am I planning to do this week? As a CPA, what am I planning to do this? So, and now it makes it a little easier to kind of plan out the week, because now I can plan out, I can put in those time blocks where they need to go, as opposed to everything turning into quadrant 1, where it's, oh man, I should have did this Monday. Now it's an emergency. I got to do it. It's Friday, and so I guess too, from the urgency as well, I feel like, so in quadrant 3, let's see. So Covey calls this the quadrant of deception. Can we kind of dive into that? So what is he really meaning by this?
That one is urgent,
But not important.
but not important,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So I think that's back to Steve's point, right? Oh my God, I've got a buyer that wants to see a house right now. Well,
is that important?
like, are they gonna fire me if I show it to them in 3 hours?
Right.
Right? Is it really going to be under contract if I show it to them in 3 hours? Now, I will say that rotates, because 6 months ago, that house may have been gone in 3 hours.
Right.
But in the market we're in now, and in the market we're in, the exception, that was the exception to that rule. And I think most of the time we all live in that state of, oh my God, we have to do it now. but we don't. It is not an urgent task. It might be important, right? Showing that buyer that house is important. You know, making sure my child gets to practice on time is important, but not at the detriment of the other things that are overshadowing that. And we just so shove those things down so often.
Right.
And for me, I mean, getting back, it's just the actual, you know, and Laura kind of got me going on this, trying to use showing assistance as much as possible. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. Last week I had a guy who we've been talking for a while. He finally found a house he really liked, and it was in Cornelia, which is about an hour from my house. And we were going to go look in the afternoon. But I was like, I can't get up there, drive an hour to show his little house that he's not going to buy probably, and drive an hour back. I mean, that's like 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Right. So I went on Showami and I found somebody for $50 to go show the house. And it's like, for $50, I got 3 hours of my day back. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
So again, that's that urgent but not important thing. I had to go show him this house. He's my buyer. It's like, but it gets you to thinking, how can I leverage that piece out to where I don't have that to worry about that in quadrant 3, and I can get back to quadrant 2. Naturally spend time that afternoon, and I made it intentional. Spend that time that I bought, you know, planning for next year. And I'm getting ready to hire an assistant, and I'm planning out what is that assistant going to do. So I made it, you know, I you know, mentally made a point of saying, if I'm going to pay for this time, damn it, I'm going to use this time.
Right. Steve, in the book, we kind of talk. So he kind of talks about what do they call it? So delegation and kind of aligning this incentives based on production and production capability. How did that kind of help? I guess, what kind of paradigm shift, I guess, is what I'm asking? Because to me, it sounds like that example you just gave, I feel like was a really effective use of, one, delegation,
right,
and then two, kind of, you know, I feel like it was aligned with production capability. So, for instance, you know, delegating that to where it becomes, well, quadrant 1 for the other person, or and then now you're able to kind of pull some of that time, right, quadrant 2. You know, we also kind of talk about being effective with people as opposed to being efficient. I feel like in that same example, if you had to try to go do it yourself, being efficient, to your point, that's 3 hours of your day that could have been done somewhere else. So
to me, it doesn't necessarily provide a paradigm shift. For me, it's reinforcing things that I need to be doing. And to me, Dan Beer, who's in Fast Forward Movement, he's one of the guys he's one of the founders of the movement, he and Kyle Whistle. So they're the heads of the group. But I hear his voice talking about, like, you know, time. Like, right. For example, let's say, what do you want to make this year? Let's say you're a realtor, you just got started, you want to make $100,000 this year, right? Like that's what every realtor, like when they first start out, that's what they want to make. It's $100,000, right? So if you were to break that down, let's say you work 48 weeks a year, because you're going to take 4 weeks between holidays and stuff. And then let's call it 50 hours a week, because when you first get started, whatever. So you're talking about, you're going to make $41.67 an hour, right? So then it becomes a question of what I'm doing. Is that $41 an hour, or can somebody else do that? And I can use that time to do something. And then it really becomes important when you think to yourself, right, if I'm going to do, like, my goal is I want to do $20 million in volume next year. I mean, so you're talking about doing something closer to like $150, $200 an hour. I don't have time to be driving to Cornelia to go show one house. You know what I mean? If it's somebody that's on a Saturday and we're looking at 4 houses, that's a different story. But like on a Thursday, but that's the Dan Beer thing. But that comes from a book like this. And then a book like this comes along and just, it reinforces that this is like, Like Dan Beer is going to do, his team's going to do, it's like 700 to 800 million dollars this year, which is just stupid, and like, so I'm going to listen to him because he's got some good ideas, so it's just, it's that reinforcement of, we've got to really lay into this,
Right.
Right. Well, for me, I think when you start delegating, right, I think that those quadrants and what's in them starts to shift as well. Because all of a sudden you start going, okay, well, this is urgent, but not anymore because they're doing it. So now I just need to check in. So it becomes, something different on your checklist, right? That time commitment, whatever. But you have to be able to open your hand to allow somebody to do it. And when he was talking about his son and the grass and how he was keeping the yard and all of that kind of stuff, I think for us, and as we grow and as those things move and shift, those tasks on our list, I think that mission statement becomes important, even more important as you start delegating, because then you have another hat that needs another mission statement. If I'm going to delegate X to my child, what kind of leader or manager am I going to be? Am I going to manage that situation, or am I going to be an effective leader to teach them how to manage themselves, right? Because that's the objective. And that's kind of what he starts talking about a little bit, especially towards the end of that chapter. And so, like, Steve, as you're getting your assistance, it's going to be hard. Like, it was so hard for me to go, you know what? He can do it. And there's moments where, I'll find myself shifting into a quadrant I shouldn't be, because Louis will send me something. I'm like, well, that doesn't work, or that's not how I would do it. And you find yourself going, stepping into quadrant 1 or quadrant 3, because you think it's got to be done right now. It's urgent, or you think it's important, when in reality, if I send out a flyer that has this picture or that picture, in 10 years, is it going to matter? So as I've started managing people, and as I've started managing my kids and disciplining my kids and picking, okay, am I a leader here? Am I a manager here? And now that I'm going to start putting those tasks in those quadrants and being mindful about it, as I'm delegating and opening up that hand, I ask myself quite often, in 10 years, is it going to matter?
Mm-hmm.
In 10 years, is it going to matter? Last night, both my kids got grounded because they were supposed to have their merit badges done for Scout. Right. And I had to make the decision when I came home, because they've both been working, but not working. They've had other things that are taking priority. Right. Is it urgent for them to finish their merit badges today? No, but I understand that if they don't finish it today, they only have till they're 18, and Jordan's going to be 17 in February. That 18 months is going to go, especially as a junior in high school that plays flag football, that plays this, that plays that does all these different things, right? And so as I'm managing her, I have to make those decisions as to what was going to be the right way to discipline that, because while they're not urgent, they're important. Those things are super, super important. And as you start delegating, you have to start making that decision and knowing what your management style, your leadership style is going to be. Are you going to micromanage? Are you going to delegate? Are you going to allow them to fail forward? And those quadrants start rotating. And what you do.
In the book, we talk about both for delegation versus stewardship delegation. Has this changed the way you guys delegate, or will it change the way you guys delegate?
It will. And I think I've been working on this without knowing I was working on it, probably for the last year and a half. And it kind of goes back to that same question. Okay. Do I need to turn into a dictator in this moment? Does this moment have a 10-year long or a 5-year long effect on my children? Getting their eagle it'll make a difference in college. It'll make a difference in their first jobs. It'll change the trajectory of their path potentially. Right. And so, yes, it is important and it is urgent that they do these tasks. Whereas, maybe they don't cut the grass right. okay, well, I probably am not going to take them out that moment and say, listen, I want my lines to look this way. It's important, right? Learning how to cut the grass is important, especially if you're a yard person. You don't want Bermuda grass scalped. You don't want to let it grow too long. There's things you have to do.
Right.
So it's important, but it's not urgent that I correct that right now. If they don't learn today, if I don't have the time on my Saturday, you know, we're headed out the door, I'm not going to make that next thing late. I'm gonna talk to him next Saturday when we cut the grass again, and it's going to be from a learning perspective, not a dictator perspective. Not I want it done this way because I want it done this way. Let's learn how to do it right so that when you do it for your own property, you do it correctly.
Right. Right.
So, and this comes back to the last chapter, the leadership versus the management thing, and how leadership first and then management. Like if you have terrible leadership, there's not much to manage. I mean,
Right.
you've created just a monster. And that point resonated with me with my kids and with talking to them and disciplining them and whatever. And to Laura's credit, like she was saying, I mean, sometimes you got to put your foot through their head. You know what I mean? Sometimes they've asked for it and they're going to get it. But how can I turn this into the long term? I'm not just doing this because I'm the big bad wolf. I'm doing this because we're trying to build a culture here, because I'm trying to build you up to be the man that you're supposed to be, or the woman you're supposed to be, So to me, I mean, so this is what that is. And I mean, the reality is the more we do it, the better we're going to get at it. The more, I mean, the lawn thing is perfect because like my son, when he started mowing the lawn, there were times where he mowed the lawn and I was like, oh my goodness. But it's like, he saved me an hour of my weekend. It's like, all right, that's an hour, that on the weekend, that's family time, that's whatever. So it's like, all right, we're going to work this out. So it's like, but the more you do it and the more you work on leadership versus management, the better leader you're going to be, and then the easier it's going to be, and so on and so forth. So it just is going to snowball. But it's just keeping that in mind, every day.
Right. Okay. And then let's see, closing up here. So do either of you guys plan on, if you haven't already, implementing a fourth generation time management tool? And if so, if you don't mind sharing.
I'm going to be honest. I don't remember what the fourth time management tool was.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh yeah. So he talks about kind of the fourth generation of time management, and so for the fourth generation time management tool, it's he kind of has so he talks about essentially the front of it having your mission statement. So then every time you go to look at your tool, you kind of one, put you in the right mindset before getting into, okay, let's start time blocking, let's start moving things around. That way you can kind of essentially reestablish your four quadrants, and then as you start to go through your week, or as you start to go through your planning, it's a little bit easier to kind of look at importance as opposed to just urgency. And so I guess for me, the time management tool that I'm implementing is kind of two of them. So one of them is ClickUp. It's just a software that I use. And the other one is just a planner that I have that actually has all the mission statements and whatnot. And so the ClickUp's kind of like a team tool. So I use that for my team. And my team, essentially, I want us to always look at the mission before diving into our list of tasks. So then that way we can, one, kind of stay focused on what's important. We understand urgency. Urgency is fine because there's due dates on everything. But we want to understand what's important. And so we've got like little tags in there where you can add like the priority and whatnot. So it's really been helping. I think this chapter has been huge because it really kind of helps put a roadmap in place. It takes habit one and it takes habit two, and it just says, just do it. Just do it. just do it, get it done, and so after reading this chapter, that's essentially kind of what I put in place. But yeah, the fourth generation time management tool, I feel like it's helped a little bit. I wouldn't say it's a night and day type thing, but it does kind of help keep things organized.
Well, for me, it's if you go back to the bold laws from Keller Williams in a class out there called Bold, clarity is power, right?
Right.
Clarity is power. And I think for me, this tool, where I'm going to get clarity, where I'm going to expand and accelerate and propel my business, my life, and everything else, I'm going to sit down this weekend and figure out who I am, right? Like your social media accounts kind of make you do that, right? Like, because you got to have your 5 cornerstone contents. Who are you? What are you? Why are you out there? Right. But I want to make sure that those hats that are important have a mission statement, right? What does that mission statement look like? Because I don't want my volunteer time to be more important or less important than my family time or my work time. And I think understanding, that and using that as my driver. I mean, that was my biggest aha, was you need a mission statement. You need to understand who and what you are in each area. And I am like super excited about sitting down and doing that and I think my Sunday will look much different this week.
Okay. That's what's up.
Because not only is clarity power, but you're going to focus on it, and what you focus on
expands.
Let's go bold law for bold law. Let's go. Come on.
Sweet.
Cool. All right, we got $1.50 left before we're out of here. Where are we going to in the next?
All right, so the next one's a little wonky, and I will lean on whatever side of the fence the two of you guys want to. So we have Paradigms of Interdependence, which is a 53-minute read for me, and then have it for Thinks, Win / Principles of Interpersonal Leadership is 1 hour and 30. So that means I think 1 hour is potentially maybe short for me to read, but 2.5 is long. And then Habit 5 is back to 1.5 hours. So we can either do Paradigms of Interdependence, just 1 hour, or we can try to pair together Habits 4 and that one. What do you guys think? So either 1 hour or 2.5 hours of reading.
So that part, what I'll say is the interdependence, it's kind of,
we got, I don't know if it's 30 seconds to decide.
Oh shit. Okay, let's do both. I mean, it's both too much.
Let's get crazy. Come on.
Yeah. Let's live on the edge.
Yeah.
All right. So both Paradigms of Interdependence and then Habit 4. Read all the way through Habit 4 for next week.
It's important and it's urgent that we do that.
Exactly. Yes. Let's do it. Quadrant 2.
There you go.
Quadrant 1. All right.
We'll catch y'all.
Bye, guys.
Right, bye.
Thank you.